Welcome to our channel, and get ready for a deep dive. We're going to be talking about Mel Robbins' The Let Them theory.
Yeah, we're going to explore this really simple two-word phrase that can really liberate you from that stress of always trying to control things that you just can't, and empower you to focus on what you can control.
Okay, so have you ever felt like you're constantly trying to manage everything around you?
Right.
Always trying to steer the ship, even when, you're not the captain.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Robbins actually argues that a whopping 70% of our stress comes from trying to control things that we simply can't control, especially other people's choices and behaviors.
Like herding cats.
Totally. Yeah, it's a recipe for just frustration and exhaustion, for sure.
And she doesn't just say this. Anecdotally, the Let Them theory is really grounded in neuroscience and psychology and relationship studies. She dives into the science of how chronic stress from trying to control others can literally rewire our brains and push us into that fight or flight mode where rational thinking just goes out the window.
Yeah, it's like our brains get hijacked by the amygdala, that little almond-shaped part of our brain that's responsible for our fear response.
Right.
And when we're constantly trying to control other people, we're keeping our amygdala on high alert, and that can lead to chronic stress and anxiety and even burnout.
So how do we escape this amygdala hijack and reclaim our sanity?
Well, that's where Let Them comes in. Robbins describes it as a mental detox, a way to shift from that stress response back to the prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that's responsible for rational thinking and decision-making.
Okay, so it's not about giving up.
No, not at all.
It's about recognizing what we can control.
Exactly. Yeah, and letting go of this illusion that we can control other people.
I love how she says, you can't control the wind, but you can adjust your sails.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and she really brings this concept to life with a story about a frustrating encounter at a garden center. She's stuck behind this painfully slow cashier and getting more and more agitated by the second. You know that feeling, right? When your inner monologue starts screaming, come on, move it.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Yes. But then she remembers, let them. She lets go of the need to control the cashier's pace, and she focuses on her own response. And she just uses that time to catch up on emails, listen to a podcast, and suddenly the whole situation feels different.
It's a perfect example of how Let Them isn't about condoning bad behavior or accepting mediocrity. It's about choosing how we respond to situations rather than letting those situations dictate our emotions.
So it's a two-part process, let them and let me.
Exactly. Let Them is about recognizing that other people have the right to make their own choices, even if we don't agree with them. It's about respecting their autonomy and releasing the need to control their behavior. And Let Me is about focusing on our own responses and actions. It's about taking ownership of our thoughts and feelings and behaviors rather than blaming other people for our emotional state.
So in that garden center story, Robbins essentially let them be slow and let me choose how to respond to the situation. And she found peace by simply shifting her perspective. It's not about ignoring others. It's about recognizing their right to make their own choices, and then empowering ourselves to choose our response. And this ties into another major source of stress, fear of other people's opinions. Think about a time when you really wanted to do something, maybe start a business or wear a bold outfit or express a controversial opinion, but you held back because you were terrified of what other people might think.
Oh, yeah. For years, I wouldn't wear anything remotely colorful because I was so worried about standing out. I thought people would judge me or think I was trying too hard or even ridicule my fashion choices. It sounds silly now, but it felt very real at the time.
No, it's not silly at all.
Oh.
We all have those insecurities, those fears of judgment that hold us back from living authentically. And Robbins gets it. She shares how she put off launching her speaking career for 2 years because of this very fear. 2 years of missed opportunities and income, all because she was worried about what other people might think.
Wow, 2 years. That's a powerful example of how fear can keep us playing small. But here's the thing. Research shows that 69% of people's judgments actually stem from their own insecurities. So most of those negative opinions people might have about you are actually about them, not you. It's their own baggage being projected outwards.
Wait, so you're telling me my mother-in-law's snarky comments about my cooking are actually about her insecurities, not my culinary skills?
It's a possibility, but in all seriousness, it's a powerful reminder that we don't have to let other people's opinions dictate our lives. We can choose to let them have their judgments while we let me live authentically and pursue our dreams. We can't control what other people think, but we can control how we respond to those thoughts.
So it's about letting go of that need for external validation and embracing our own inner compass. This let them approach Sounds great in theory, but what about those people who are just plain difficult?
Yeah.
We all have them in our lives. The perpetually grumpy coworker, the overly critical relative, the friend who always needs rescuing.
Yeah, Robbins dedicates a whole chapter to this, explaining that the key is understanding their frame of reference. Think of it as their personal lens, shaped by their experiences, fears, and history. Their behavior, however challenging it may be to us, makes sense to them based on their frame of reference.
So instead of trying to change them or force them to see things our way, we should try to understand them.
Exactly. She uses a great example of her own mother-in-law, who wasn't exactly thrilled when Robbins and her son got engaged. Robbins felt hurt and angry at first, but then she started to see things through her mother-in-law's frame of reference. She realized her mother-in-law's reaction came from a place of fear rooted in her own experiences with family separation and loss. And that understanding completely transformed their relationship.
So even the most difficult people are operating from a place that makes sense to them, even if we don't agree with it. But this doesn't mean we have to accept bad behavior.
Absolutely not. Robbins is clear about that. We can understand someone's frame of reference while still maintaining healthy boundaries. It's about accepting them without enabling them, loving them without sacrificing ourselves.
This all ties back to that core concept. Let them be who they are and let me choose my own response. It's about letting go of the need to control what you can't control and focusing on what you can. Your own actions, your own boundaries, and ultimately your own well-being. Speaking of letting go, what about those times when someone's behavior is not just difficult, but downright childish? You know, those full-blown emotional outbursts that make you feel like you're dealing with a grown-up toddler.
Yeah, Robbins tackles this head-on, explaining that adults often react emotionally like children because they never learned proper emotional regulation. Those tantrums and meltdowns we see in adults are really just unprocessed emotions bubbling over.
So what do we do when faced with one of these adult tantrums? Do we give in to their demands? Try to reason with them?
Robbins suggests a more effective approach. Respond to the adult, not the child.
Okay.
Visualize the situation as if an 8-year-old version of that person is present.
Oh, that's interesting.
It changes everything about how you respond. Imagine a child throwing a tantrum you wouldn't engage on their level, right? You try to calm them down, offer reassurance, and set clear boundaries. It's the same with adults who are having emotional outbursts. It's about responding in a way that's calm, compassionate, and maintains your boundaries.
So let them have their tantrum and let me respond in a way that's both firm and kind.
Right.
It's about recognizing the pattern, breaking the cycle, and choosing a response that protects your own emotional well-being. But it's not always other people's emotions we're trying to manage. Sometimes the hardest thing to let go of is that need to control our own lives, especially when it comes to making difficult decisions that impact others.
Oh, yeah. Robbins dives into this, emphasizing that making the right decision for yourself often feels awful in the moment, especially when it impacts other people emotionally. It's that feeling of knowing you're doing the right thing for you, but still feeling guilt, fear, or even dread about the consequences. She shares some pretty intense stories in this section. A bride canceling her wedding 2 weeks before, an executive leaving a family business, a parent setting boundaries with adult children. These are decisions with huge emotional weight attached to them.
And in those moments, it's easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, second-guess ourselves, or even back down altogether just to avoid those difficult emotions.
She frames this section around the idea that short-term discomfort is far better than long-term regret.
Okay, so how do we navigate these tough choices? How do we let them feel their feelings without letting those feelings dictate our decisions?
She offers a framework. First, it's about a truth assessment. What are you really afraid of? What will it cost you if you don't make this decision? Then, it's about managing the emotional impact on others. Who will be affected? How will you deliver the news? How will you handle their reactions? She emphasizes the importance of preparation and communication, but also recognizing that you can't control how others will react. You can be kind, compassionate, and understanding, but ultimately, you can't take responsibility for other people's emotions.
It's like that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. You can offer support and understanding, but you can't force someone to accept it. And sometimes those tough decisions involve letting go of relationships that are no longer serving us. Robbins even dives into the neurochemistry of heartbreak, showing how emotional pain triggers the same pathways as physical injury. No wonder heartbreak feels so real. She cites the research of Dr. Ann, a neuroscientist specializing in attachment, who explains that our nervous systems are literally rewired during these experiences. Our daily routines are disrupted, our future vision is shattered, and even our sense of identity feels threatened.
It's a powerful reminder that these feelings are real and the healing process takes time. But it's not just about time passing, it's about actively taking steps to support our own healing. Dr. Ann suggests making environmental changes, removing reminders of the past, rearranging living spaces, and creating new routines. It's about breaking those old patterns and making space for new ones.
She also emphasizes the importance of a strong support system. Reaching out to friends, scheduling activities, joining new groups. It's about filling your life with positive connections and experiences.
Yes, and she even gives us a timeline, citing research showing that 71% of people feel significantly better by the 11-week mark.
That's good to know.
Yeah, it gives us a sense of hope, reminding us that even the most painful experiences are temporary and we have the power to move forward.
And the let them theory provides a powerful framework for doing just that. Letting go of what we can't control, taking responsibility for our own responses, and making choices that support our own well-being. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. It means embracing your own power to choose your path.
And choosing the love you deserve. Which brings us to the often complicated world of romantic relationships.
Oh boy.
Robbins dedicates a significant portion of the book to this, even bringing in relationship expert Matthew Hussey to offer his insights.
Nice.
The core message here is to stop trying to change or fix others in relationships. Instead, observe their actions objectively and accept the reality they show you. Stop focusing on potential and start paying attention to patterns.
So it's about seeing the truth instead of trying to rationalize it away.
Precisely. As Robbins says, people tell you who they are through their actions, not their words. Matthew Hussey adds to this, explaining how people reveal themselves through their level of effort, consistency in actions, response to boundaries, and treatment during conflict.
It's about recognizing those red flags instead of explaining them away or making excuses for someone else's behavior.
And it's about understanding what you can control in relationships, your standards, what you accept, your boundaries, and ultimately, your choices.
Robbins even offers some really practical advice for navigating the often dreaded commitment conversation.
Yeah.
That what are we talking? That can feel so awkward and anxiety-inducing.
Yeah.
She says it's not about ultimatums. It's about valuing your time and being clear about your needs and expectations.
Matthew Hussey actually offers a script for this conversation. He suggests starting by acknowledging that you've enjoyed spending time with the person, but that you're looking for a commitment and want to see if you share the same vision for the future. It's a direct approach, but it's also respectful, and it avoids manipulation or guilt trips.
And she also emphasizes that you need to be ready to walk away if the other person doesn't share your vision. It's about recognizing your worth and not settling for less than you deserve. And this applies to all types of commitment conversations, not just defining the relationship. Whether it's moving in together, discussing exclusivity, or even talking about marriage, it all comes down to clear communication and shared values. And if the other person doesn't align with those values,
then you have to be willing to let them go. It might be painful in the short term, but it ultimately creates space for a relationship that truly fulfills you. So let them choose their path and let me choose mine, even if those paths diverge.
it's a powerful message of self-respect and empowerment. But letting go of a relationship, even when you know it's the right thing to do, is never easy.
Absolutely. As we discussed earlier, breakups impact us deeply, both emotionally and neurologically.
Robbins really emphasizes that healing takes time and intentional effort. She revisits the research of Dr. Ann, reminding us that we need to create new patterns, build new neural pathways, and essentially reshape our identities.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting over someone, it's about rediscovering yourself and remembering that you are the love of your own life.
That's a beautiful sentiment. It brings us back to that core principle of let me. It's about empowering yourself to prioritize your own well-being and growth, regardless of what's happening around you.
And that's a perfect segue to the final part of the book where Robbins really brings it all together.
She calls this your let me era.
It's about stepping into your power and creating the life you want.
She outlines the core truths about ourselves, others, and life, reminding us that change is constant, growth requires acceptance, freedom comes from letting go, and power lies in choice. And she challenges us to stop wasting our energy trying to control things we can't control. Stop seeking approval, stop making excuses, and start living fully.
It's a call to action.
It's a reminder that the life you want is waiting on the other side of letting go.
I love that. So what happens when our need to control stems not from trying to change someone else, but from trying to protect them? What about that instinct to swoop in and rescue our loved ones from pain or discomfort?
That's a great question, and it's one that Robbins tackles head-on in the next section, where she explores the fine line between support and enabling, especially when it comes to helping someone who's struggling. It's that instinct to, swoop in and rescue our loved ones from pain or discomfort, but Robbins makes this, really powerful point. The more we rescue, the more they sink.
So we're enabling their struggles by, shielding them from the natural consequences of their actions.
Exactly, yeah. She shares this really heart-wrenching story about a friend who was desperately trying to fix her husband's unhealthy habits. She bought him exercise equipment, prepared all these healthy meals, made doctor appointments for him, and constantly expressed concern for his well-being, but nothing worked.
It sounds like she was doing everything right,
Yeah.
at least from a caring perspective.
Yeah, but her efforts actually made things worse. The more she tried to control his behavior, the more resistant he became, and their relationship really suffered as a result.
So it's a classic example of how our attempts to help can actually backfire.
Yeah, and even prevent the person from hitting that, necessary rock bottom moment that often serves as a catalyst for change.
Okay, so what's the alternative? Do we just stand by and watch our loved ones struggle? That seems kind of harsh.
Yeah, Robbins offers a more compassionate and effective approach. She explains that true support means allowing people to face their own battles while remaining steadfastly by their side. It's about being a source of love and encouragement without trying to solve their problems for them.
So empowering them to find their own solutions.
Yeah, exactly, even if it's messy and uncomfortable.
And she emphasizes that we can't want someone's healing more than they do.
Right.
We can't force them to change before they're ready.
Exactly. She dives into the research of Dr. Waldinger, whose studies on happiness and well-being reveal that learning and growth often require experiencing the natural consequences of our actions. Sometimes, pain is the greatest motivator.
It's like that saying, you have to fall before you can learn to walk. We learn from our mistakes.
Right.
And sometimes those mistakes involve, experiencing discomfort or even pain.
And while support is essential, it's crucial to distinguish between support and rescue. Robbins outlines these 3 levels of support: harmful help, healthy support, and emergency intervention.
Okay.
Harmful help is what we often see in cases of enabling. It's those financial bailouts, excuses for behavior, and attempts to cover up problems.
Taking responsibility for the person's choices instead of letting them own up to their actions.
Yeah. Healthy support, on the other hand, involves setting clear boundaries, offering resources, maintaining connection, and allowing the person to experience the natural consequences of their behavior. It's about being there for them emotionally without enabling their destructive patterns. And then there's emergency intervention, which is reserved for those situations where immediate safety is at risk.
Okay, so when there are threats of suicide or medical emergencies or legal crises or any other situation that requires immediate action to protect the person or others.
Exactly. So how do we know when to step in and when to step back?
That's the million-dollar question.
It's a tough balance to strike, for sure.
Yeah.
Robbins offers some guidelines. We step in when there's immediate danger present, when professional help is needed, when legal issues arise, or when medical emergencies occur.
Gotcha.
We step back when chronic patterns continue despite our efforts, when help is refused, when enabling is occurring, or when our boundaries are crossed.
Okay, so that's really helpful. It gives us a framework for navigating those tricky situations where we're trying to balance, our desire to help with a need to respect the other person's autonomy.
And when it comes to setting boundaries, Robbins emphasizes the importance of being clear and consistent, especially around money. She points out that unconditional love does not mean unconditional financial support. Money, when given without conditions, can actually enable unhealthy behaviors.
It's like that old saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime.
Right.
Giving money without accountability can create a cycle of dependency.
Exactly. She encourages us to set really clear expectations and requirements when offering financial assistance. For example, paying for therapy only if the person actually attends sessions, or providing housing support only if they maintain sobriety. It's about using financial assistance as a tool to encourage positive change, not as a crutch to enable destructive patterns.
So this whole section really highlights the importance of tough love. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most loving thing we can do for someone is to let them face the consequences of their actions.
It's about believing in their strength and resilience, even when they doubt themselves. It's about setting them free to find their own path, even if it's a path filled with, challenges and setbacks.
And this whole idea of letting go of control, of accepting what is, extends beyond our relationships with others. Robbins also applies it to the often frustrating reality of life's inherent unfairness.
Right. We live in a world obsessed with comparison, especially thanks to social media.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We're constantly bombarded with images of other people's seemingly perfect lives, which can make us feel like inadequate and envious and even resentful.
It's like we're all in this giant hamster wheel of comparison,
Yes.
constantly striving for something that always seems just out of reach.
Robbins tackles this head-on, acknowledging the painful reality that life is not fair. Some people are born into privilege, others face, seemingly insurmountable obstacles. We can't control the hand we're dealt, but we can control how we play the game.
So she offers a powerful way to use comparison as a teacher, not a torturer.
Exactly.
Instead of comparing ourselves based on, fixed attributes, things we can't change, like our genetics, upbringing, or past experiences, she suggests focusing on skills or actions, things we can develop and improve.
That's a good point. For example, instead of comparing your appearance to a photoshopped Instagram model, focus on developing healthy habits like exercising regularly and nourishing your body with nutritious foods. Instead of envying your friends' seemingly effortless success, study their work ethic, learn from their strategies, and apply those insights to your own endeavors.
It's about shifting our focus from what we lack to what we can create.
And it's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique journey. Comparing our chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20 is a recipe for misery.
It's like comparing apples to oranges.
Totally. Yeah. We're all at different stages, facing different challenges, and moving at our own pace.
Right. Robbins encourages us to let them have their successes and let me focus on my own path. It's not about diminishing their achievements. It's about celebrating our own progress and recognizing that we're all in this together.
I love that.
Speaking of togetherness, Robbins also explores the often tricky world of adult friendships. Making friends as a kid seems so effortless, but as we get older, it becomes a whole different ballgame.
Oh my gosh, I know, right? It's like everyone scatters after high school or college, and suddenly those close-knit friend groups start to fade. Robbins calls this the great scattering.
Makes sense.
It's a natural shift that happens as we move to different cities, start families, focus on careers, and just generally go through different life stages at different paces.
And it can feel really isolating, especially if you find yourself in a new town or going through a major life change. I remember when I moved across the country for a new job. I knew no one, and it took months to build even a semblance of a social life. It was tough.
Oh, yeah. Robbins shares her own experience of feeling incredibly isolated after moving to a new town. She spent a whole year feeling lost and disconnected until her daughters literally forced her to knock on a neighbor's door. And that simple act of courage sparked a whole new community for her.
It's a reminder that sometimes the biggest obstacle to connection is our own fear.
Yeah, she talks about the importance of being willing to go first, of taking those social risks and initiating conversations, even when it feels awkward or uncomfortable.
Because everyone's feeling that same sense of loneliness or hesitation.
Exactly. Someone has to break the ice.
Yeah.
And she emphasizes that adult friendships require intention and effort. It's not just going to happen organically like it did when we were kids.
Right. We have to create opportunities for connection, whether it's joining group classes, attending local events, volunteering, or even just frequenting the same coffee shop regularly. It's about putting ourselves out there and being open to those small moments of connection.
And she offers some really great tips for mastering those initial connections. Learning and using people's names, showing genuine interest, asking follow-up questions, and remembering personal details.
Those are such simple things, but they make such a big difference in building rapport.
They really do.
It shows the other person that you're actually paying attention and that you value the interaction.
And once you've established that initial connection, it's about nurturing those relationships. Robbins stresses the importance of consistency. Creating recurring events, extending casual invitations, following up regularly. It's about showing up and being a reliable presence in people's lives.
It's about making an effort, even when life gets busy.
She also highlights the 3 pillars of friendship: proximity, timing, and energy.
Okay.
Proximity makes sense. You need to be physically near people to connect with them.
Shared environments and regular opportunities for interaction. What about timing and energy?
Okay, so timing refers to life stage alignment. It's easier to connect with people who are in a similar stage of life, whether it's single, married, starting a family, or empty nesting.
So it's about having compatible schedules, priorities, and availability.
Exactly. And energy refers to that like natural connection you feel with someone, shared interests, compatible personalities, and that mutual effort to connect.
That spark that makes you want to spend time with someone.
Yeah, exactly. But even with all the effort in the world, sometimes friendships naturally fade. It's just part of life.
People change, priorities shift, and sometimes those paths just diverge. It can be sad, but it's also a natural part of growth.
Robbins encourages us to embrace this evolution instead of clinging to relationships that have served their purpose.
That's easier said than done, though, right?
It is, yeah.
Letting go can be tough, especially when you've shared so much history with someone.
She reminds us that some friendships are meant for a season, some for a reason, and some for a lifetime. Learning to recognize the difference brings peace.
I love that. It's about accepting the natural ebb and flow of relationships and focusing our energy on those connections that truly bring us joy and support. It's about letting them form new connections and letting me do the same.
I like that.
And sometimes letting go means releasing the desire to control other people's choices, especially when it comes to those we care about most.
It's so tempting to try to fix people or push them in a direction we think is best for them, especially when we see them struggling or making what we perceive as bad decisions.
You want to protect them from pain, from making the same mistakes we made, right?
Yeah, but as Robbins points out, you can't motivate someone else to change. Change only happens when the person feels ready and chooses it for themselves. Any pressure from the outside just creates resistance.
It's like trying to push a square peg into a round hole.
Totally. She even dives into the science of it, citing research showing that the brain is wired to resist external pressure. Change has to come from within. All that nagging, lecturing, and advice giving can actually be counterproductive.
And I think we've all experienced this at some point, either as the one trying to fix someone or as the one being fixed. It rarely ends well.
Yeah. So if we can't force change, what can we do? How do we support our loved ones without enabling their self-destructive behaviors? Robbins offers a more effective approach that focuses on influence rather than control.
Good.
She calls it the ABC loop. Apologize and ask. Back off and observe behavior. Celebrate progress while modeling change.
Apologize.
For what? She suggests starting by apologizing for any past pressure or attempts to control the person's behavior. It's about acknowledging that our good intentions might have actually been harmful. It sets the stage for a more open and honest conversation.
Okay.
Then comes the asking part. Instead of telling the person what they should do, we ask open-ended questions about how they're feeling and what they're thinking.
Gotcha.
It's about listening without offering solutions or advice. It's about giving them the space to process their own thoughts and feelings.
Okay, so then we back off.
Yes. We give them the space to make their own choices, even if those choices are different from what we would choose for them.
That can be the hardest part.
Oh, it can be so hard.
It's so tempting to jump in and try to fix things, but it's essential for creating an environment where change can actually happen.
Right.
So we back off and observe.
We watch for any signs of progress, no matter how small, and we celebrate those wins. It's about offering encouragement and positive reinforcement without any judgment or pressure attached.
And all the while, we're modeling the change we want to see.
Exactly.
We're showing them, through our own actions, what healthy choices and behaviors look like.
Yes, it's a powerful way to influence without controlling.
It's about trusting that they have the capacity to change when they're ready.
Right.
It's about letting go of the need to fix them and believing in their ability to fix themselves. And if, after a reasonable amount of time, the ABC loop doesn't seem to be working, Robbins offers 2 more steps: decide and end.
This is where we get real with ourselves and determine whether this is a deal breaker or not. Are we willing to accept this person as they are, even if they never change?
That's a tough question.
It is. If the answer is no, then it's time to end the relationship, whether it's a romantic partnership, friendship, or family connection.
Right.
And if the answer is yes, then it's time to stop complaining and truly embrace acceptance. Either way, it's about setting clear boundaries and honoring our own well-being.
This whole section is a powerful reminder that we can't control other people's choices, but we can control our own responses and actions.
Right.
It's about shifting our focus from trying to change others to supporting them in their own journey, whatever that may look like.
It's about letting go of control and embracing the power of influence. It's about trusting the process and believing in the possibility of change. And sometimes it's about recognizing when it's time to walk away. It's about choosing the love we deserve, both from others and from ourselves.
This all ties back to the core message of the book. Let them be who they are, and let me be who I am. It's a message of empowerment, acceptance, and freedom. It's about letting go of the need to control what we can't control and focusing on what we can. Our own responses, our own actions, and our own choices. It sounds like the let them theory is really about, empowering ourselves to focus on what we can control, which is our own responses and our own actions, and ultimately our own well-being. It's about recognizing that true power lies in letting go.
Exactly. And this leads us to one of the most powerful yet often misunderstood aspects of the let them theory, choosing the love we deserve.
Ooh, this is where things get really interesting. Robbins argues that we often settle for relationships that don't truly fulfill us because we're afraid of being alone or of hurting someone else's feelings or of just rocking the boat.
Yeah, and she challenges us to examine our relationships through this lens of honesty and self-respect. Are we staying in a relationship out of habit, obligation, fear? Are we sacrificing our own needs and desires to please someone else? Are we accepting, crumbs of affection when we deserve the whole loaf?
Those are tough questions to ask ourselves.
They are.
It's easier to stay in the familiar, even if it's not truly fulfilling, than to face the unknown.
Right. But Robbins argues that the unknown is where the magic happens. It's where we discover our true worth, our true potential, and ultimately the love we deserve. She reminds us that choosing ourselves is not selfish. It's an act of self-love.
So how do we know if we're settling in a relationship? What are some red flags to look out for?
Robbins and Matthew Hussey outlined several key indicators.
Okay.
One is a lack of reciprocity. Are you always the one initiating contact, making plans, or expressing affection? Another is inconsistency. Does the person's behavior actually match their words? Do they follow through on promises? Are they there for you when you need them?
So it's about paying attention to patterns, not just isolated incidents.
Exactly. And it's also about noticing how you feel in the relationship.
Right.
Do you feel respected, valued, and appreciated? Or do you feel drained and depleted and constantly walking on eggshells?
It's about tuning into our own intuition, our own gut feelings about the relationship.
And if those gut feelings are screaming run, then it might be time to listen. Robbins emphasizes that we have the power to choose who we allow into our lives and what kind of treatment we accept. We don't have to settle for less than we deserve.
That's about setting boundaries, communicating our needs, and being willing to walk away from relationships that no longer serve us, even if it's painful.
Exactly. And this applies to all types of relationships, not just romantic ones. We can choose the love we deserve in our friendships, our family relationships, and even our relationships with ourselves.
This whole concept of choosing the love we deserve really ties back to the core principle of let me.
Right.
It's about prioritizing our own well-being, honoring our own needs, and creating a life that feels authentic and fulfilling.
It's about embracing our own worthiness and stepping into our power.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the let them theory, what are some key takeaways our listeners can walk away with? What are some actionable steps they can take to start living their let me era?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is simply to start noticing. Pay attention to when you're trying to control things you can't control, or when you're letting fear dictate your choices, or when you're settling for less than you deserve.
Become aware of those patterns, those habits of thought and behavior that are keeping you stuck.
And once you've identified those patterns, start experimenting with let them. Allow others to make their own choices, even if you don't agree with them. Release the need to control outcomes you can't influence. Focus on your own responses, your own actions, and your own growth.
It's about shifting your focus from what you can't control to what you can.
And it's about remembering that you have the power to choose the love you deserve. Choose relationships that uplift you, support you, and inspire you to be your best self.
Choose experiences that bring you joy, purpose, and fulfillment.
And most importantly, choose yourself.
Embrace your worthiness, honor your needs, and create a life that reflects your truest self.
The Let Them theory is not just a book, it's a movement.
It's a call to action to let go of control, embrace acceptance, and step into the power of let me. If you're ready to dive deeper into this transformative concept and unlock its full potential in your own life, we encourage you to check out the link in the video description, where you can download the book and embark on your own journey toward greater peace, freedom, and fulfillment. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.